Great.
So I teach juniors and seniors, and I'm most likely to use it with my junior class, excuse me,
Okay.
which is the class that actually Jack participated in, the Ethics, Culture, and Justice India.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And how large is that class? What's the size generally?
26 students.
Okay, okay, good. You must have, what does your online class look like now?
Yeah, so we've kind of gotten into a good rhythm. So I typically start with just the question of the day so that I can hear from every student, and it's just something simple and sometimes silly. Last class period, I asked, or 2 class periods ago, I asked what was their favorite full-length animated film, and then last class I asked what was their favorite place in the world. And it's great because they are kind of silly questions, but I kind of joked halfway through the responses for the animated films that I said, this is really actually a personality test. And it was a bit revealing, to
Uh-huh.
see, hear what the kids shows. And then the last class period, when I asked their favorite place, one of the girls said, anywhere but here. And so as we broke off into like another, like I let them out to write a response to a reading they had done. And just fortunately, she was the last person to leave. And I said, hey, wait a minute, Natalie. I said, what did you mean by that? Did you mean like this class was the last place you wanted to be in the world, or just this situation inside? And so we talked for a few minutes, and she's like, no, I'm just trapped inside. And so even those silly questions are a bit revealing sometimes. And then, so question of the day, I do like a prayer or reflection of the day. Try and give them some just space to be calm, and I'll often read something for them, to them, and then give them a moment of silence. And then whatever we're working on. So recently we did a reading chapter from a book that I sent to them as a PDF. So the last class period, they just had to write a 3-paragraph personal response. And I always give them like way more time than I think they'll need, partially because I don't want them to have to do any work outside of this 85-minute meeting time. And secondly, because I teach the last class of the day, both of the classes I teach is the last class of the day. So I can just see my students are wiped out by that point of the day.
Yeah.
So I gave them like 35 minutes or so to write, and I just kept emphasizing, just be succinct, write me just only as much as you need to. And they're still getting to know me. I mean, by the end of the year, Jack can kind of attest to this. The kids realize like quality over quantity. Like and I tell the kids, actually I told them last class period, if ever you feel stressed about this class, just at that moment, stop what you're doing, send me an email, and just do something else. Like maybe math homework if it's more important, or maybe go to sleep, so I really try to just be gentle with them. But also as I tell them, I just want to keep this as interesting as possible so that you want to be engaged, not that you feel like I'm, holding your feet over the fire. And then, if we do some fun stuff, Fridays we have, I call them Cliff Bar quizzes, where we just do a fun 5 questions. And then I used to give Cliff Bars to my students, to the winners, but now I usually bring in my 2-year-old and give her a Cliff Bar and tell them that I just want to
empathetic eating? Is that what that is?
Yeah, exactly. No, that's triage parenting is what it is.
Right. And it's probably a lot of fun watching a 2-year-old dig into a Cliff Bar.
Yeah. And sometimes she joins us for class. I mean, this is like, we're juggling here.
That's great. That's great. That's great. Okay. So then that would be one class, and it sounds like it's at about 2:00. What time is it?
1:10 we usually meet. Yeah, we meet at 1:10 on a typical day, and then it goes till 2:35. And I usually end about 10 or 15 minutes early. Yeah.
Okay. 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 Great. Great. Good. So that's just the one class. How many times a week does it meet?
Meet twice a week. So on a 4-day week, like last week it was Tuesday, Thursday. Typically we meet Monday and Thursday, and then they have Wednesdays. We don't have scheduled class. They have time for office hours if they want to meet with teachers and other meetings that happen.
Okay. Okay.
So are all weeks B-week schedules then? Just 4 days a week?
No, it's just 1 through 4 and 5 through 8, twice a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
1 through 4 and 5
So
through
4
8.
days.
Those
4
periods?
days of teaching a week.
Yeah, exactly. We have 8. It's an 8-period schedule, and we typically would rotate. So, like Jack was asking, a B week is a little. We would like rotate the periods, so you're not always meeting with the same kids at the same time. Because you know, if you have it in the morning, that's not a morning person. You always get a groggy, kid, and
that's great.
so, but now it's just we've just kept it simple. So I always have the kids the last period of the day.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
How often would you imagine using Screen 360 TV in your class?
Well, I wanted to kind of discuss that. I mean, I think I do use video clips fairly frequently. I mean, I'd say once a week, once every other week. But transitioning to this, it would really depend on what's available, because as you know, you get in your rhythm of teaching, and I have the videos that I typically use. So I was trying to kind of wrap my head around that. And I guess the challenge for me right now is that, as I said, I really have devoted myself to not giving a lot of content to the kids, not just building things in that burden them a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, and right now, since we're meeting fewer times, I'm stripping down even content as it is. So this would mean creatively adding something. So I want to make it worth their while, obviously, primarily, and then obviously worth your while to get a good experience from kids and some good feedback. I know that's a really roundabout answer, but
well, I'm just as you're talking, switching to whoops. I pulled up a slide that I made with your class in mind that we added to our. And let me just bring that back up here. Where did it go here? Well, let me find it here. It left me. Okay. And 1 moment. Oh, okay. 20. Oh, that's not it. Okay, just a second. Let me ask you another question while I continue to look for that, because I wonder if you could even see it. I've brought it out on the page here. Just
I think it's the Zoom page is up. That's what we. Oh, there we go. Now we can see.
I see.
Well, if we can see here, I'll just bring this up and enlarge it. My back. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And it says, one of our pilot participants, a high school ethics teacher, can't travel with his class now, but he can assign his students in California to watch a film after breakfast with their peers at 9:30 at night in India, the country with the globe's largest adolescent population of 243 million. So this is, your class is at 1:30.
Right.
And I'm wondering how you could use that 9 a.m., 9:30 p.m. times configuration to your benefit to meet people.
Yeah, the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge is that they'll have another class most days at that time. And then I'd be hesitant to schedule them on like Wednesday, for instance, when they don't have class. It might mean like a voluntary thing from them. But again, that would be a challenge to ask more of them.
Okay, I see. Yeah, but from what we understand, they're very, very busy outside of school,
Yeah.
most of them.
I mean, this is, and the reason I chose this class specifically is, some of that can be mitigated by the fact that I'm telling them, look, this is for you. This is an opportunity. And I may be able to do that once in a while on a Wednesday. Just say, look, this is really amazing. It's a way to connect with students in India. I know this isn't a typically scheduled class period, but and then what I can do is, because I usually resist doing like extra credit stuff, because it's usually kids that don't need extra credit that do extra work in there, and as I also tell them, and Jack can appreciate this, I just told him the other day, I said, look, I'm giving you all A's. Like, you're all just gonna get an A. So just come to class because we're doing interesting things. And for this group of kids, it usually works because they really are interested. So again, I don't typically do extra credit, but I can tell them, guys, you know how hard it is right now to travel, and I can't even promise you that the trip's going to happen. We've talked about that.
Right.
But this is a way to connect. And so I do think that they would be willing to show up on a Wednesday. I'd probably get most of them. I don't know, because we have scheduled office hours on Wednesdays, and I don't know what subject area is during that time, because if it's like math, some kids will definitely want to be involved in a math like tutorial or something like that. But yeah, if we plan it out far enough in advance, and I can let them know 3 weeks away on Wednesday, this is on the calendar.
Okay.
I think we can make that
Like
happen.
this. Okay. Were you able to, well, you may have wanted to learn more about how it might work before talking with your department head?
Oh no, I emailed him and he said the funds are there. I just need to fill out a check request and just
Okay.
give him a little more information. But he kind of, for whatever reason, he trusts my judgment. So he said yes.
That's good. Well, you've taken a group of students to India and they all came back alive. So that's
right,
really,
exactly. I have a pretty good return rate.
Even though one went head to head with a cobra, that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, and one left his passport on a plane at one point. We got him back.
I did not tell him that.
Oh, was that you too, Jack? Oh.
Yeah, that was me.
I've done that once before too. Oh my.
That's exciting.
They were able to find it though. Yeah. Okay. That's great.
Who's the department chair for religious studies department?
Steve Scott now. He just took over. Yeah.
Okay.
So he's he's kind of he's very creative and really like wants to explore all avenues, especially during this time. So yeah, he was definitely open to
That's
this.
great. That's great. So I mean, the Wednesday could actually be a screening, and then during your class time, we could arrange other partnering or programs between them during your class time. And some of those dealing with race, and we've just been talking about that, dealing with very contemporary issues. And I'm wondering if that was one of your class goals, is to really dig into what's going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because we do like an introductory unit into social justice, and then unit 2 is really diving into India and the specifics of India. And it's kind of both and, it's this historical approach. We read biography of Gandhi and really learn about what's going on in Indian history. And then we continue to go back and forth about, okay, what's this look like compared to India now, and then what's this look like compared to us now? So we're kind of like circling around these issues, which is, I think, a great appreciation that racism is not new.
Right.
Political unrest, social justice movements, and religious animosity, like these things aren't new. And in fact, looking at history, at the most tense moments, we might find some of the best possible solutions. So So yeah, that's definitely a huge theme for us as we move forward.
Mm. I also did a class at Design Tech High School where we used Green 360 TV for the students to arrive at their own solutions for creating international communication. So
Yeah.
that could also be a possibility if you wanted uh, to use it
Yeah.
to research internationally. So that's how we used it first, to find people and discuss with them how else we might communicate for more peaceable solutions, and then take through a design course and arrive at those. So that's another option,
Yeah, I really
arrive at
like
new
that.
solutions.
I like that for a couple of reasons. One is, as I've said before, I do genuinely feel like I have the best students on campus.
Mm,
You see Jack, and I mean, these kids are the most motivated, most interested, most interesting, you know. I mean, when I asked them the second day of class to come prepared and tell me what the most important or most pressing social justice issue was of their generation, it was on. I mean, these kids were just like almost fighting over Zoom, which was great, you know. So these kids are engaged. And the second reason is, that's, I think, what can really give them an appreciation of Gandhi's approach to justice and peace, is that he was being creative and responding to the needs of his time. And certainly we can see that in some ways utilized, in civil rights movement and other times, specifically going, back to his approach. But he was being very creative and very specific to what he thought would work, and he kept changing his mind. He kept, like, at one point he's like, yeah, let's support the First World War because we got to get, the British, we got to be arm in arm with them. And then later he was like, of course not, we're not supporting war. So the kids can appreciate that in his biography, is that he was transitioning throughout his life.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
So I do like that if we can hand that to them and say, okay, your turn, like, be creative.
That's I could send you a link to show how that went. I mean, we started
Oh
with
yeah.
empathy for the globe, and I had the students trace the entire atlas on a big wall-size whiteboard, and they were physically completely engaged, taller ones up high and shorter ones down below. And um, I thought that was really, really successful. I mean, the corporate really engaging with the borders and talking about what is there. Is that mountain? Is that river? Who lives on either sides of these borders? It's a really uh, rich project, but hard to do together. But I suppose if everyone has an atlas. Tell me about the materials used in your class. I can imagine you require everyone to have an atlas of India.
Yeah, I mean, it's all really digital. I mean, I early on, I have
Mm-hmm.
them basically fill out, I just send them a blank uh, map of India and the surrounding areas, and they have to, like, fill them all out and get that, together so they
So
can,
you do that.
and then of course that, like, kind of hold them accountable for that, quiz them on, okay, where's Bangladesh, where's Bangalore, where's Delhi, where's Mumbai,
Mm-hmm.
just so they have an appreciation. And I tell them, the reason I'm holding you accountable for this is because you're going to be at a family party and somebody's going to ask you, like, where you're going, and if you don't, like, know, you're going to feel silly. So I mean, just to have an appreciation of, oh, Bangalore's down here, Delhi's up here, like, here's Calcutta and Mumbai, so you have an appreciation of contextually, and then knowing about how far they are apart, how far we are away and how far Delhi is from Bangalore. So having some, and then, like, that's the like, as you can say, like, drawing the atlas gives you an appreciation just on paper of how enormous this is.
Yeah.
But when you can say, as I told them, one of the parents asked me if we were taking a train from Bangalore to Delhi, And I was like, absolutely not. Like, we don't have 14 extra hours to like travel, and for them to think about like, okay, what's that train ride look like? You know, this is why we fly within India. So yeah, giving them some appreciation for the distances within that
Yeah,
region, really
yeah, wow.
critical.
Huh. Uh,
And then,
Go ahead.
sorry, the one other thing that I thought of, like, as you mentioned, borders, was a friend of mine has this great story about when he flew over the Middle East, and the pilot said, "Oh, we're just crossing the border between Iran and Iraq," you know, and he said he looked down and he's like, "There's no border. There's no line. Like, I don't see a line in the middle of the sand where
Mm,
Iran becomes Iraq." And I think that may be like a way to engage the kids, is like, go onto you know, Google Maps, zoom in, like, see if you can,
mhm.
like, what's the landmark between some of these places. It's arbitrary. I mean, it's a
Right.
political line drawn on a map, you
Mhm.
know. So, you know, and other things, you have like, you have the Himalayas between, you know, like when you say like, okay, now Pakistan becomes like India, like, what is that? Like, it's the line.
Mm.
So I think that's a way to engage the kids about like, what does a political boundary mean?
Yeah, there's a film that I just saw in Berlin this last year about this a border that you're speaking about, and um, child loses a kite on the other side, and it's on the other side of the border, and they want to get it back. Two kids and a child. I'll find that one. That sounds like it would be really, and I think it's
Yeah, we saw that, right?
Afghanistan border. Did you see that one?
I
I
think
haven't
so.
seen. Yeah. And another thing, John, I wanted to ask, do they ever present to their peers at school?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I just remembered the ECJ conference that we had where we all
Ah,
learned a song based on where we went, and I think we learned a Hindi poem or something like that, and then we had to memorize the words, and then we presented it to all the other ECJ
Yeah. Tum chalo.
classes. Yeah, Chimchalo.
ah,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Very
that
In
was
fact, I
nice.
cool.
tried to
And
change it the next year, because the previous class and the current class will like sing it together, and I was like, oh, let's change it up. And I tried to change it, and the kids from, I think it was Jack's class, they revolted. They weren't even in my class anymore. They're like, you can't change it. We've been
Oh, that's
right.
a lovely thing. That's a
Yeah,
lovely
it's pretty
thing.
cool. They do take ownership of it.
Really nice.
yeah,
And so they look forward to learning that as a sort of a badge of honor from your class. How nice. And they continue singing it. Wow. Did you sing it in India, Jack? Did you learn it?
in
Uh,
um we learned it during the school year, and then we presented it the year after with the class before us, with the
I'm
class
sure you sang it
after
on the
us.
bus back and forth.
Yeah, we sang it a lot of times. Yeah, it was sort of like our class anthem,
Oh, that's
and then
nice.
we got to sing it the year after at the conference with the class that came after us. So yeah, it was cool.
Well, I like this idea of working with both the Monday, Thursday, and or Wednesday. It would just be a matter of scheduling. Um, and right now, we have a Thursday morning class, French class with Rose, and a
Okay.
Friday morning class. So Monday, Wednesday would be good. I mean, and
Yeah.
then we'll work out. Let's see. Okay. When is the end of the semester or quarter, John?
Our semester ends, to pull my calendar up, but, December, mid-December.
Okay.
Our, I
Right
know the quarter,
before, a week before
yeah, right,
Christmas,
like Christmas
probably.
break, essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
And our quarter is usually like right kind of mid-October.
Uh-huh, okay.
But
Do
those are
you,
arbitrary political borders.
Oh, are they? Okay. Um, what I'm thinking of is that if that Wednesday is something that you have to ask as a special event, that might not happen as often, maybe twice over a semester.
Yeah, maybe that's probably reasonable.
Yeah, let's see. And I mean, in that week we could find a documentary, and then we could perhaps find a Satyajit Ray film.
Mm.
The Abu trilogy. Have you seen that? The Apu trilogy?
No.
Satyajit Ray's early Indian filmmaker who did beautiful work watching a child in India. Such Satyajit Ray, Ray, Satyajit Ray. So, that just because India and in your experience, does the cinematic cinephile India present itself I guess up front? Is that, or do you have to dig a little bit for the cinephiles in
Oh
your
no, I mean, there are a number. I mean, there's such a spectrum of students in the class, but I have a number of Indian students in the class who are way better, way more educated about Indian film. In fact, may have been Jack's year.
Yeah.
We had students present on. I mean, actually, I think that was the year I started having kids present from their own interests, and I had students present about Bollywood and Bollywood dancing, and so some of the kids are definitely better experts than I at cultural issues, and so I turn the reins over to them and have them present.
so
So
you
yeah, that would be
native
yeah,
Hindi speakers and
yeah.
some of the other languages spoken in India are also spoken in the class?
Some of the students have some knowledge because of their families. So yeah, that'd
Wow,
be pretty cool.
that's great. That's great to have that. Okay. Let's see, I'm checking our time. Exploring borders, that's really good.
Yeah, there's so many Indian languages. So many.
And distinctly different from one another. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Wow. Okay. I think I'd like to do at this point is definitely find that that sheet and bring up the post-film survey. So just to tell you how it would go, I've got a notch here. Let's look at that. Okay. And this is a formal production term, a notch. So just to give you a sense of how things will work this week. With the technical test on Thursday, let's see, you could do either one with us. Well, it would be hard to get your students in the afternoon. I'd be happy to test with them when they are on. So let's just add that on. So that's at 1, and test with them, just to see how Screen 360 TV works for them, and they could have that first experience. Okay. So that would be a test. On Friday morning, we will have people waiting in the waiting room from 15 minutes before. Then we'll welcome you on Screen 360 TV. Friday morning, we'll have a guest, and it's a German film called For einen Moment. And you won't, your students will be in other classes. Will you be able to attend the Friday
Yeah, I
morning?
only teach in the afternoons, so as long as my 18-year-old is available to watch my 2-year-old, I'm in good shape.
Okay, okay. Great, great, great. Well, you can certainly bring her on with a Cliff Bar.
Yeah,
So,
might
all
be.
right. And so it'll run like this. We'll bring the guest on. We will speak about some things that we will be looking for and listening for, and then run the film, bring the filmmaker back up and start a Q&A. And we have devised some questions that could start the Q&A, and then we wind it up and ask for a final presented question so that we can record it. And this recording can go with our artifacts and will help us present the films that we have. Is that something, do you think, that would work with your class, being recorded for, let me get, probably less 30 seconds each,
I
responding?
think so, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think I would just have to ask for permission if that's all right, but I'm sure the students would be fine with it.
Okay.
And if I had access to those recordings, it would help me, because I could put that in the grade book.
Oh yes, of course you would, and they would go on my YouTube channel, and there's,
Okay.
I'll make sure to send you also the World Class, it's called, the little documentary made from the design tech school.
Cool. And the other thing I'm thinking is there are a percentage of kids that have off periods. This group of kids are ones that sometimes don't, because they'll take a second math class or they'll be in other things. But if by chance a kid has an off period in the time frame that this occurs, I mean, I don't know if that would be okay for them to jump on and just have into the conversation.
Oh yeah, no, certainly they could participate.
All right.
And
yeah, I'll check with them and see if they have any extra time.
yeah, they
Or I
would.
always tell them, just cut math class because it's not important and you're never going to use it.
Yeah, these kids, I can just imagine.
So true.
Yes. Let me bring up that the survey that we'd like to give them after, and that would be, I guess, on your time, or we could. I'm guessing a Q&A will go 20 minutes. Sometimes it'll go longer, so we want to give it that time. But generally, we'll probably end about 10:30. So starting at 9:30, ending at 10:30, and we would then offer you that survey to do on their own time or in the time remaining.
Sure. Yeah, they can do stuff like that on there.
That up here, and Dee Dee's film analysis. Let's see where that is, Dee Dee. So many things. There we go. Too many things up, pardon me. That was shared with me just now. Okay. Sorry for that delay.
Oh, no worries. I was actually just looking at my calendar on Wednesdays to see when we can get those slots in there.
Let's see. So, Dee Dee, you shared that with me. I should Sorry, let me see here. I can bring that back up. Okay. Ha.
What are you looking for, the survey or the?
I'm looking for the survey that Dee Dee just passed to me this
Right.
morning.
Yeah.
And
It was just Google Docs, right?
right, and it was called film analysis.
Right. Mhm.
And let's check, and it's probably in this one. There it is. Thank you for
Found
your
it? Okay.
patience. Yeah, there we go. That's the problem with, and there's of course our other thing that we're missing. Yeah. Oh, it's there, right? No, that's it. Okay, and there's the other thing we were looking at. I was looking for. I was just in the wrong. There we are. Can everyone see that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Dee Dee, why don't you go ahead and lead
Mm-hmm.
that,
Okay.
and let me bring it up a little.
Okay. If you can make it a little larger, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay. So John, what we're trying to do here is develop, kind of a film analysis worksheet, if you will, or some sort of, understanding why the kids are doing or watching this and what the purpose of it is. So basically it's kind of a little handout for them to fill in, to kind of reflect and kind of address some of the things that they might have seen in the film, just to kind of keep them on task or engaged. So so at the top is just going to be the name of the film that they're watching, and then just the education standards, and that's more for you perhaps than it is for them, but it's just the fact that it does meet the Common Core or the IB or advanced placement and cultural literacy standards, etc. And then what's going to happen is where the objectives are going to be like, what did you get from this film? What did you understand? What are you going to do with it? That kind of thing. So therefore the objectives are, kind of to measure visual and auditory comprehension, geography, what countries is in, what borders, these countries, something about the country, then content recall, which is just basic, some vocabulary. Here with the vocabulary, we're asking them to identify 2 keywords or 2 words that they heard in the film. I kind of have a tendency that I probably would want to identify 2 from the film myself that make them aware of these 2 films and of these 2 words in the film. Only I think about SAT prep, ACT prep, or whatever, as like if I can say these words are probably maybe some that you haven't heard before, don't know, this is a keyword for you. And then some discussion skills that hopefully you could use in the classroom at the time for discussion, or if you wanted to the next day to lead a deeper discussion on some of the issues that were raised or some of the things that you saw, or differences, similarities, those kinds of things, then you would be able to, because the films that we're choosing are, should be more interesting, should be more provocative, should raise some questions for the kids, especially when you start comparing, how are they different than us? What do they have we don't have, or what's it like? Some sort of social comparison, social, economic, or geographic, or environmental issues, whatever it is that's being addressed in the film. So we're hoping, obviously this is about connecting, and when you have kids that are connecting, classrooms that are connecting in different parts of the world, this is even better for cultural understanding, or kind of perspective, the whole idea of perspective. So we've got what is a country, just basic above the surface kinds of things, the country of the origin, what was the scene, landscape like that you were looking at in this country, just to kind of like have them zero in on some of the things that they're looking at. 2 new words from the film, and then asking, do you dislike or like, can you be specific and tell us what it is that you liked about the film or didn't like about the film, didn't understand about the film, anything like that. And then the sensory words. what did it feel like? What did it smell like? What did it sound like? And this is all just trying to get the kids to kind of start thinking about, what did I feel? What were the emotions that I felt when I was watching this film? And, connected to these kind of senses that we have. And it's more about starting to generate this literacy piece, this empathy piece, that maybe those words will help connect to some emotions that film asks you to tap into, that you don't even realize sometimes that you're feeling these things, these emotions that are happening. So these sensory words help also with this conversation that they're going to have. And then, of course, what's the same, what's different in all kinds of aspects here about the film that they're watching, the environment, the country, the situation that they're looking at that's being addressed. And then, what more would you like to learn? So this maybe piqued your interest in something. There's some things that weren't addressed that you're now curious about. And so if you were going to ask any questions about, what is it that I saw and I'm questioning that I want to know more about? So this would open up that conversation too. And then review the film. If you were going to review this film for another high schooler somewhere else in mind, we were going to make you the reviewer and tell us what was a synopsis of the film. And then, what interested you in it, and recommendations, the strengths and weaknesses of the film. Send it to a known person. If it's a high school student, doesn't come to mind, send it to a relative and get a response from them. So this is just kind of a worksheet, kind of a handout kind of thing that should help with debriefing the film and have kids, engage, and it would be easy then, even on a Zoom thing, to kind of like, have a conversation centered around the film that they watched. What do you think about this?
And I think if I could just interject, it would be, Dee Dee, are you thinking that we would use this as sort of a survey afterwards, after the Q&A, because the Q&A is also a debrief, but we would use some of these questions?
We could. Right, we could. I think we could use it as a survey. And I guess I think the hat that I was wearing here was the teacher's hat, I was thinking that I didn't know how much conversation we're going to have online altogether, but I'm thinking that some of this could be an extension into the classroom the next day or evening or whatever it is that the teacher might want to do with it, more if they want to. And so this was just kind of like ideas or prompts to for the teacher to think about what they might use out of this, or maybe not, so it could be a survey. It could be used in a couple of ways, I think.
Yeah. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, Dee Dee. This is definitely going to springboard us into a discussion after the film, which is what you always think about as you present anything film or reading to them. I like, in terms of the review, I like that they are acting as maybe like a film critic. I might even add to that a little bit different option, where maybe a student could create like a movie poster or something like that. Looking behind Catherine and seeing all those beautiful, like I'm intrigued. Like as soon as I look at that poster, it's like, what's that movie about? So asking a kid, create just a one shot of the film that if you saw the film, you would immediately know, oh yeah, that. Or if you haven't seen the film, it would draw you in. Something like that would take a creative mind.
I think that
and would be a good option for kids that have. I was just talking to my class, like we get on these cycles in our educational institutions where right now it's like testing week. Every class has a test or an essay, and so I think they do a good job of this film review, but some of them are going to be like, I've written 10 essays this week and taken 2 tests, and if I could do something else, so I'm just thinking of like engaging them in different ways. But I do think it's important too to like survey, to see, for you guys, for your benefit, to really get an honest response from the kids. Like, did this work? Like, was this a useful endeavor? Did this make use of your time well? Did you learn something from it? Did you like it? So that, because I know you guys want to kind of chart the course forward.
Right.
Yeah, that was my idea, to have a student survey and just get their opinion if they like the film or not.
Questions I think would be in that survey.
And I agree. Yeah.
And then that 2 weeks afterwards, we send out a recollector so that it brings the film back to mind.
Mhm.
And it's just a single, maybe 2 questions that reminds us where the film was from,
Mhm.
and then what is the scene that really keeps coming back to you, or what is the scene that comes up for you now. And that simply reinforces the memory of the film so that it can continue contributing to the conversation, to their ideas, to their mindset of looking over borders and looking out. So
Mhm.
there's that's
Yeah.
kind of a 2-phase. Go ahead, Dee Dee.
Yeah, I have a question for John, since you're the first teacher that we've shown this to. And so I was really mindful. I didn't want to dictate, I didn't want to say do X, Y, Z, because I know your classroom, your students, your time that you have to work with them, etc. And so, like there's so much you really could do, like with the review, definitely it could be part of a menu. And so my question to you is, if I were to say, these are some things you might be able to do. I mean, like I'm a big into, like, I was a history teacher, right? So if you're taking notes on whatever film, no matter how dry it is, often I would say to the students, I don't want you to take notes. I just want you to doodle in your notebook. And, that's going to be your note taking, because I know that by you doing that, you're remembering things you didn't even know you were going to remember about what you're watching here in the film. So I mean, there are all kinds of activities that I could certainly suggest or prescribe. And so I was trying to be cognizant about like less is more. But so I don't want to overstep my boundaries. So I guess I'm asking for your feedback as to what this is. Is this helpful? Do you more, less?
Yeah.
I mean,
No, I'm right there with you, Dee Dee. And again, Jack can tell you less is more, sort of like my motto. And so even when showing films, typically what I would do is, like, I like how you mentioned before the film telling them, look for these 2 words, or look for these scenes, or or sometimes we'll stop. Of course, if I'm watching a longer film, it might take, I might show it over the course of class periods. I'd like to tell them before, watch what Sunil does in this next scene, just remember that. Or I'll even stop it in the middle, because I tell them, when you're watching a film, I want you to watch it. I want you to do just that one thing.
right.
And then to ask questions afterwards, like what, or like you were saying, Catherine, even 2 weeks later, what scene stuck with you?
Yeah.
What was the most moving part of that? What challenged you or made you feel uncomfortable? Like, those are the answers that they don't have to answer during the film. That
Right.
afterwards, there's going to be one thing that they remembered,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so if you can ask those kind of like bookend questions before the film, think about this, after the film, what's stuck.
And John, the other thing that I was really, the whole time I'm thinking about this whole project here, one of the things that just keeps in the back of my head, that keeps appearing again and again and again, is that, if a teacher was going to show it, let's say once a month, use it once a month or once every 6 weeks or so, for the year, one of the things I think would be kind of cool would be a journal, so you would keep these things all like in a journal every film. And then maybe by the end, you can reflect on the films that you saw and whatever, you wanted to do with them. But, it feels like it lends itself, if it was going to be used regularly, to a journal of some sort, whether it's a digital journal or whatever kind of journal you want to use. But I don't know if that.
Yeah, I think that's a great possibility. Yeah.
I think also, Dee Dee, in class, the India ECJ has a tradition of passing down journals from year to year.
Oh.
And I think if we somehow we could, a student each year could have a journal on a Screen 360 films or short videos that we show, and just take little notes or scenes that they remember, and then pass that on to the next year. And then we may update the films, or we may show the same films, so they'll see the student before what they were thinking during the films, and maybe they could gather more info or reflect on it more. I don't know. Could be a thing we use.
That's nice. That's nice, Jack. So these are the films used. Yeah, that's good. John, I came across a school in Quebec that has ethics teachers, high school ethics. And I'm wondering if you've done exchanges with other schools. And we talked a little bit about that in our original interview with you. We were talking about each one teach one and communicating with other schools. Have you done that?
We have not, no. The year before I took over the India class, they had gotten students from the school that we went to visit, which is in Noida, which is near Delhi.
Mm-hmm.
And they had paired those students with students in the class, in our class. So they got a chance to communicate before the trip. And just getting some feedback from the teacher that had the class before me, she said it was sort of hit or miss. Some of the kids had a good experience and were able to chat beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was kind of cool for them to introduce themselves. Some of her students like never got a hold of them, or it was a little clunky. So we didn't go back to that, but I do like that. I mean, I do like the opportunity to engage with somebody who, because, and even when we just met them for the first time, it was really moving to have conversations with them about like, what are you interested in? What's most important? And we actually spent the day with them too, which was great because they showed us around. They, gave us the students tour of the school. So that was really meaningful. And I know one of the students from Jack's class for years, maybe even still for years, Jack Murphy, spoke like almost every day with this kid that he met in India.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, they would like send like Snapchats or WhatsApp back and forth. But we haven't really spent that time to, connect during the school year quite as much.
Okay, that's
but
right.
I do think that would be interesting.
I'm still in contact with Bhuvin from that school we went to.
Oh, that's great. That's
great. He Snapchats me. It's funny.
So the trip happens on spring break or in the summer?
In the summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Have you put together a documentary about any of these trips? Or
no, we haven't, unfortunately. I think that would be a really interesting project.
You need to actually, what I've done
Maybe
with
you
some
can
of
make
my
one,
teams.
Katie.
Well,
Maybe
there we go. I've made teams in my classes, and one team is the documentary team. And so they're capturing everything. So you might do that in your class when you go. There is a group that's a documentary team. But yeah, that I could do that. We could do that. That's a nice idea. Okay.
So this works, John. This will be okay. This works.
I like the structure. Yeah, it's simple, and it's like I said, it's questions that kids don't need to answer during the movie, which I've really pulled away from. Because I tell the kids, like, if I'm showing you this film, I want you to watch it. And if there's like fill in the blank questions, you're going to be looking down when something happens. So yeah, I'd much rather have questions like this that you can read over these questions before the film and then put them away.
Right.
And then still respond to them afterwards.
We would deliver them in a digital form, in a survey, and you could deliver that to them after the film. And I'd even be happy in introducing a film to give a few cues on watching a film and letting it wash over you like a wave, rather than being nervous about your phone and holding it. There are things to do to have a great experience with a film, a real truly transformative, transporting experience with the film. So we could also say something.
And I think that's a good point, is just a quick, not to patronize them or to talk down to them, but to say to them, here's how you watch a film, from somebody who's made films. Because I was telling my 13-year-old the other day, because we're watching a movie and she keeps like getting up off the couch and running up or checking her phone. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, just because the movie gets quiet doesn't mean you can check your phone. Like, that's important. So I feel like I was trying to teach my 13-year-old, this is how you watch a movie, which when I was watching a movie at 13, it was because nothing else was going on. Like, I literally have nothing, like I don't have anything else to do. So I'm fully engaged in the movie. Now we have to teach that, I guess.
Right, exactly.
Right,
Exactly.
right. Well, I mean, things like turning off your lights, you can do that, or um, we'll think about that. Team Screen
Yeah.
360 TV. We'll put together a list of how to watch a film, and
Yeah, which I
make
think can be,
recommendations.
kind of a fun thing. Like it doesn't have to be like serious, like this is how you, but like just say like, think about this, get your favorite beverage, like
Yeah,
make some
get
snacks. I mean, like
comfy.
literally make this an experience. Like
Yeah,
have
and
a good
also,
experience.
if when you go to the movies, what annoys you that someone else doesn't while you're watching the film?
Right,
Yeah.
and don't do it.
People talk right
I've done that in
exactly
my
whatever it
class.
is.
Like, yeah, no, I've done it in my class, sort of half sarcastically, like stopped the film and said, okay, obviously some of you have never been to a movie theater before, but you don't talk when the film's going, because kids will do that. And you're like, what, you gotta be kidding me. Have you never gone to a public space before?
Right.
Yeah. And putting yourself on mute and taking your video off doesn't mean leave the room. It means
Right.
watch the film.
Right.
One other thing here, John. At the end, we say send a recommendation to a friend and wait for a response, and maybe invite that person. Is that going outside of the bounds of a class?
I don't think so, no. I mean, I think
Okay.
that I ask that question after sometimes when I read something or watch something, like, who would you recommend this to? You
Yeah.
know, and if they say my grandpa, then I'm like, okay, maybe I need to get more current.
Or
But
good, bring grandpa in, because
yeah, maybe
that's
grandpa
what
needs
we
to
also
hear about
want to
racism.
do. Bring grandpa in to watch the film with you and
Yeah.
enjoy the wisdom, right?
Yeah, so no, I think that taps into or it challenges them to think about, especially in the social issue that we want to engage them in, who needs to hear this? Who is this going to challenge? Are you recommending because you think they'll agree with it and like it? Are you recommending it to them because it's going to challenge them and hopefully enable them to grow? So I think that's a really good piece.
That's good. And then they could sign up with Screen 360 TV and watch it with that person
Right. Yeah.
and
Sure.
really
Yeah.
see it through, which is something that we don't often do with film recommendations, is actually ensure that that person sees it and then stays for the conversation, because that's really what you want.
Yeah, and I do think I'm seeing my young people move towards that. One of was Soror in your class, Jack? Soror Nicole?
No, she was a year after me, I think. Soror, I know Soror though. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing kid. Her sister just joined my class, and I told her there's no better, compliment to me as a teacher than a younger sibling joining my class, because you got to choose to be in this class, and your sister told you what it was like. So, yeah, and just so I chatted with Soror a little bit, and she's like super engaged, socially, politically, very active, and is the kind of student where I can see this works. I mean, our students are engaged in a way that, and I'm seeing it my own daughters and in my students, where they're saying to each other, these are important things to watch. Look at this, read this, and then tell me what you think about it. So with a platform like Screen 360, this is, I think, tapping into an energy that these kids are, feeling and looking for. It's happening on social media. I joke that I only have Instagram so I can spy on my daughters, but it's nice when I see them doing things well, getting active, and so I'm seeing that happening. I'm sure you are, and so to give them a platform where it says, okay, here's something real, watch this. Here's a platform for discussing. I don't think that energy is going to feel foreign to them. I think they're going to be like, oh yeah, that's what we're doing anyway.
That's good. It's good to hear that. It's good to hear that. And because that's what we think we're seeing already, is that there are some kids who are already out there. They've gone over borders. They're playing games with other kids in other places. And we showed an article of a girl in Texas who called an ambulance for a boy she was playing Fortnite with in the UK, and he had a seizure. And so they had clearly exchanged that he might have had a history of seizures, and she might have known it from another event. And the ambulance shows up at this boy's house, the parents have no idea what's going on, and they go upstairs, and the
Oh
boy
my
was
God.
clearly having a seizure. So
Wow.
this, is an incredible show of empathy, but it also shows us that this is what young people want. And one of the, I look to the Danish Film Institute because for a long time they have been creating film and television for young audiences, and their government contributes 25% of the state film funds to doing that. And so one of the recommendations from the Danish Film Institute was that young people want to know what other people in the world are doing. And so if we just think about that and what we're doing in the United States with, a little bit of international exchange for those who can afford it, that does happen. More seem to come to the United States. But that's why we're here, because there's little opportunity to access outside of the border, and sort of this inward, we have everything we need in the United States mindset develops too soon, and it is adhered to for too long. So I think it's dangerous. So the class like yours, what's that, Dee Dee?
Oh, I wanted to say something next.
She's raising her hand. That's very good. Do we know how the raise your hand control goes on
I
this?
know. Get ready to call you.
Go ahead, Dee Dee. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I wanted to say is that I think this is kind of, it can be powerful for a couple of ways, in a couple of ways also. One is in a really diverse classroom in California, let's say, it's kind of nice for a kid to see, his nationality, his country, whatever, on screen, right? And so therefore it's kind of, he or she's being represented. And then if you go somewhere else where there isn't.
What did we lose?
I think she cut off.
We lost Dee Dee. Okay.
But yeah, no, I like the idea of basically creating a virtual movie theater, because obviously movie theaters don't really exist anymore.
Yeah.
But for cultural learning about different cultures. And then also I think it is growing, like this sense of being woke and like really putting effort into learning, being empathetic. There's so many articles coming out and people spreading awareness on social media, but that's very performative, and that's only one step. And we provide sort of a second step in that people can actually do something to learn more and to speak with other people who are genuinely interested, rather than just
exercise it.
Exercise it instead of just posting a story on your Instagram and saying Black Lives Matter. You're actually watching a film about Black lives and then discussing it with others. So taking it one step further, which I think a lot of students definitely would be interested in, especially at MIDI, because a lot of people have really strong opinions about politics and social issues. And I think more students are now because of everything that's going on.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point, Jack, that social media can quickly become performative and not as engaging. And and I think also that students call each other out to say, all right, I see that you're posting stuff, but what are you doing? What discussions are you a part of? Really educate yourself so you're not just reposting stuff without thinking about it. And then, educating yourself and then speaking from an educated platform, and then also being open to ideas that are different than your own, because that's the other challenge of social media and of all of us. We want to read stuff that we agree with. It feels good when you're like, so that's the challenge then, is can we engage in something that's going to challenge me that I can then either push back against or learn from and accept some nuances and some new information. So yeah, I think this is obviously we're on to something.
That's what
social media is a whole nother problem that needs to be solved. Yeah,
or utilized. I mean, I do, like I said, I see enough young people on there that are speaking to important issues. But I do hope that we move from there, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing people throw the gauntlet. You know, I'm seeing kids challenge each other in good ways. So I'm hoping that we respond and grow from it.
Sorry, Dee Dee was just seeing that she was getting a security warning about hackers. How interesting.
Nice.
I've not heard of, and that is something actually we should be very transparent about. Screen 360 TV is still using Zoom, an embedded Zoom, and our security measure is by knowing who is going to appear, and during our pilot, and seeing their name at the waiting room door and letting them in. So those are our levels of security right now. I have heard that there have been bombs in Zoom bombs, I guess, and unpleasant Zoom bombs, and so you just have to tear those down. But until we can manage to have our own interface, we're fundraising for that, but until then we would devise a protocol together with the teacher that if that happens, then actually it should be discussed. That if there's a protocol, we would stop sharing, and that would be the first thing, and that would bring us back to a single screen. So I'll stop sharing now, and that brings us back to this screen. If the disruption is still on, I would take off the video. I would stop the video and continue talking it through. If it's audio, then we might log off and come back on. I'm not sure. Have you had experience with that, John?
So it hasn't happened to me, but we, early on in the spring, that it did happen a couple of times in our classes. Our IT department, they made some switches so that it was more difficult for people to access that aren't immediately in the class. And then a number of classes, I don't do this, but a number of classes use the waiting room. So they have to, individually allow students into the class, which that really helps because, unless, and obviously there's ways around it. People can change their name to somebody that's in the class, but in one class setting, your students' names. If somebody logs in with their name, you can kind of easily address that. Yeah. So we haven't had any issues this semester from that. I know talking to my daughters, there's been some issues with it in their classes, and they're at different schools. And then there was one school board meeting for the public school that my 13-year-old goes to. And they started the school board meeting, and some kid evidently joined that meeting and started shouting things and sharing their screen somehow. So yeah, it happens, unfortunately. But yeah, I think and they had to shut the meeting down and then restart it again, which was unfortunate.
Yeah, so, I think that's what we have to do, but wow.
I know. I know.
It's just listening to another type of security, and they were talking more about Russians and all of that in China having access. So that's another thing we have to all be tuned about. So that's good. I will write a note about this protocol. Should there be bombing? Okay. Good.
Yeah, you can mute everyone, but I don't know if you could kick people out, so you may have to restart.
Okay.
But yeah, I've had experienced several bombings in classes.
You have already, okay.
Yeah. I feel so bad for the teachers because they don't really know what's going on. It's always either a student or just someone hopping in and
somehow can do it. Well, I had an experience in a cinema where in a children's film, a projectionist at the Cannes Film Festival where the film had just come from, had put up a trailer in front, and it was a Little Blue movie, and the projectionist was supposedly to have checked it, and there it was on the screen, they clearly had not checked it, and it was a little advanced for the kids who were in the
Oh
audience.
my
But
gosh.
it was funny. Nobody was harmed. It was funny. The program was called Little Girls Are Made of Spice, and well, weren't they? So it was pretty funny, pretty funny. Good story to tell anyway. So I know what to do when something happens like that.
Yeah.
All right, let's see, John, I want to leave this some time for you to ask any further questions.
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything off the top of my head. I have to run pretty quickly. I've got class in 8 minutes to teach. But
okay.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, no, I really appreciate all your work, and I think it falls on me right now just to get a map for our Wednesdays, and I'll need to, as I was looking through the calendar, I'll need to choose carefully and ask probably some permissions, because we have things like faculty meetings, which I think maybe I'll get to skip, hopefully, and because everything's recorded, I can get that information. So I'm hoping that can work out, and then yeah, just finding that time, which is on me, and then yeah, I don't think I have any questions at this point. I think this is really exciting. Looking forward to moving forward.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So with a couple of Wednesdays, and then we'll see how a Monday might work, and we can do a test to start with.
Okay.
And and then we can try any one of those offers to use Screen 360 TV to research. Yeah, think about it, and I'll send you the video from World Class.
Oh, great! Thank you.
From Design Tech. And you can see.
Katie, it doesn't have to be in India. If we could connect to cultural class at SI or Bellarmine at the same time, that could be a possibility.
Yeah, yeah. Once those get going, that would certainly. And the school in Quebec also. Discussing.
Yeah, because India is the furthest time from. It's hard to connect. 12 hours.
Right. The 9 and 9:30. It's actually kind of nice because it's after breakfast and after dinner, or right before bed. So it's kind of a nice time. But yeah, we will work on that. That's cool.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you guys. I'm gonna get going so I can open up my next Zoom meeting.
Okay. Thanks, John. We'll send you this recording as well, and
great. Thank you.
Follow up with an agreement that will need your signature.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
Bye, John.
All right, good seeing you.
Okay, right, Jack, are you on your way too?
Yeah, I have a meeting.
Okay, good.
Do you want to go over anything or?
No, I think I'll just keep going. We have tomorrow, Wednesday, 11:30, right?
For what?
Just to keep going, preparing.
Oh, okay.
Can you do it?
I think so, yeah.
I think maybe just an hour, just to keep the momentum going and dot I's and cross T's and such.
Okay. Yeah, I think at 11:30.
Is that good?
I think I should be able to. Yeah, I'll let you know if I can.
Yeah. Check your calendar and come back.
Okay, yeah, I'll text you. Hopefully, Dee Dee's all right.
I think she's okay too. Nobody photo or Zoom bombed her. I'll check with her. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Have a good one.
You too. Bye bye.
Good meeting.
Yeah, I think so. It was.